with 4 is now more confusing for us.
Which one? Weak?
3 and the with 4 is more confusing. So I will...
Okay, which module? Okay, anyway, we are going there. Yeah?
I worry about the time results.
Yeah, so module 2. So 3 verses in Yoga Sutras on asanas. So on asanas, do you remember the sutras? So Patanjali defines asana as Sthira Sukham Asana. Then Prayatna Shaitilyam Ananta Samapatibhyam. Then Tata Dvandva Napikatha. So 3 terms. First is saying that an asana is that which has sthirada, which means a lasting quality, and sukhata, which means a pleasantness quality. Okay? So the interpretation is there is nothing really sthira in Prakriti. In nature, everything is changing. And sukha is something which is related to sattva. So the taste of sattva, of pure knowing, is a pleasantness. So our body, the form of the body is always changing. There is nothing sthira there. There is nothing lasting there. So Purusha is formless, and that is what it is lasting, that spiritual essence. And the faculty by which you can sense the presence, sense at base of Purusha, is sattva. So asana is that in which there is so much sattva that in that state you have a sense of knowing of something more than the form. Okay, so let me talk to you from the gunas point of view. Gunas, there is rajas, there is sattva, there is tamas. Rajas is totally unstable. Okay, because generally we are driven by tamas. So you get into an asana, tamas sticky idea is it's a stretch. So you just go about stretching, judging ourselves. Then the rajas is all over the place. So we have to first stabilize the rajas. And to stabilize the rajas, the anatomical points are great. Okay, so we say, okay, hold the this part this way, hold the sacrum this way, and that will stabilize rajas, the process of the shape. Then, through the teacher's instruction, your awareness should not only be connecting to the mechanical aspects, but considering as to how this action is happening. How am I moving the leg? How am I holding this position? Then the light turns on itself and you connect to a nice state of consciousness where you recognize a formless essence behind this form. The form is held by something which is formless. Okay? That coalescing, that state is the asana. Okay? Ananda samapatibhyam, meaning the form which is limited, samapati meaning it coalesces with that which is limitless, meaning formless. So right before asana practice, when you do a namaste, the 2 hands represent this. One is the form, one is the formless. When they both coalesce, in that namaste, asana blooms. Okay? So if it's just one hand, there is a shape, it doesn't work. And state depends on the shape as well. So both comes together. And that is an asana. So sthira sukham asana, prayatna shaitilyam ananda. So you just go through the notes and read up those 3 verses. Now important, tightness of the body indicates what? Frozen patterns of energy. Okay, tightness of body parts, the causes and conditions for it. Okay, so that is an important term in the Eastern philosophies, causes and conditions. we don't simply conclude stuff by putting a label on it. So if I'm trying to lift my arm this way and I find that my arm can't go any further, we can simply say, I am tight, my shoulder is tight. Then I can just hate this body part. I can't do anything because my shoulder is tight. Instead, the invitation is, this is a mystery. Okay, this, whatever is obstructing this movement is a mystery. I need to give it more attention, because in yoga, it's all about these samskaras. So, different energy, different emotions. The subconscious, that term, is the field of samskaras. That is not something just in some mind world. The body is the subconscious field. Okay, so those patterns sediment along the muscular, fascial, neural structures of the body. It sediments. Okay, so that can be the reason why a part is obstructing a movement, because that is holding a difficult emotion. Okay, so your entire body is just flooded with information, different kinds of emotions and feelings, and only a small part of it is given an individual consciousness, because much of what we are feeling we are not even aware. Okay, only a little part of it is lit up and we feel it. The rest, the body just absorbs it. It just anchors it. Okay, so many emotions, the system thinking that you won't be able to handle it, the body takes it. Okay, and they are these tensions. They are part of the causes and conditions of different areas resisting free movement. To that part need more love, more attention, and more assurance. We are telling the body's intelligence that it's okay, body, you can let go, I can handle it. Okay, we have to talk to that. And a phrase which I like to use is from semantic to somatic. We have to speak. The words, there is this concept of information transduction. Transduction meaning information can be translated from one medium to another medium very effectively by the body, instantaneously. So you hear somebody talking in an embarrassing, humiliating way, your body immediately understands that language, and it will change your biology as an instant response. Now we can do the same thing to ourselves, to talk to that body part lovingly, telling it to release, telling it to reveal. All those are part of the way we relate to parts which are obstructing movement. If we put a mask of, a label of tight or bad or crooked, that kind of things you put on top of it, that becomes a tamas. We can't see any further. Okay? And that part hardens even further, pains even further. Okay? So all this you have to bear in mind. Sometimes people are in abusive relationships or in an abusive official environment, where every day they hear how stupid they are, how inefficient they are, and all those things. And after a while, these people, they seem to be kind of not responding to it anymore. So if you ask them, how are you coping, they will say, I'm okay with it, I'm so used to it. They are not. That input of stimuli, the conscious mind is shutting off. But that stimuli, that whatever is coming in, is anchored by the body through different parts. Okay? And beyond a threshold, then it becomes a disease. But the body can take a lot. So all this we have to bear in mind, because this entire field is a mystery. It's energy, it is past experiences, it's our so much of thing. So go into asana as an exploration with humility, and when you encounter a tight area, that's when you have to soften inwardly more, give it more attention, give it more love, rather than be getting angry at it. Okay? So I always say I want to abolish the word tight in a yoga class. So that is a one-word labeling which closes your darshanam of that body part. We kind of then don't like that body part. Then we don't even do that asanas or shapes which kind of opens up that part, because it's always tight. So we just do parts which are open, that's all. So all this you have to keep in mind. Then erectus spinae and quadratus lumborum, that is just technical. You just have to study that. What does quadratus lumborum do? What does erectus spinae do? They are back muscles. Quadratus lumborum is between your floating ribs and the back of the pelvis. They extend your spine. So that kind of thing, I don't have to elaborate, right? So you can just read and understand. First 5 Kalari movements, you have to just learn it. Okay, so what are the 5? You might have to learn it so that you can express it in a written way. So you have to say, first one is down dog, step right foot outside, cross forearms, exhale, hands down, back to down dog, and repeat on the other side. That's Kalari 1. Kalari 2 is standing, step right foot forward, touch hands on the floor, come back to standing, hands, like that. Okay, in whatever way you can explain it. Then what does breathing mean? Yeah, Joanne said breathing means movement. Okay, so that is the way we see breathing. In our school, we see breathing not so much of an air thing, but more as movement. And what movement? What? Okay, diaphragm movement, which we experience as abdominal movement and ribcage movement. Okay, so we want to know what breathing is, which we say is movement, and yes, good movement of the diaphragm is good breathing. Now for the diaphragm to move well, your abdomen, your pelvic floor, your rib cage, all should be able to move. So chronically tight pelvic floor, due to many insecurities and fear and all that, if you're always thinking we're going to lose something, if you don't hold on, we will lose something, the response is the pelvic floor tends to tighten up. Okay, so if we grip very hard on experiences and hold, pelvic floor gets tightened up, and that affects our breathing. Okay, the pelvic floor should be free to undulate with the movements of the diaphragm. So that's why we say pelvic diaphragm. Respiratory diaphragm is here. When this moves, the pelvic diaphragm should be moving along with it. There's a beautiful rhythm, but the pelvic floor is all tight, held up, because it responds to various emotions. So the Mooladhara is our base foundation, and if that base, we are always worried about that base, then it tends to get tightened, there's a grip. So that affects the movement of this diaphragm, okay? And then if the respiratory diaphragm to move well, either the abdomen should be able to move well, out and in, or the rib cage should be able to expand and contract. But if you sit in a position which doesn't allow for that, you sit like this, then the rib cage can't move, abdomen can't move, then it is very poor breathing, meaning very poor movement. Because rib cage is not able to move, pelvic floor not able to move, abdomen not able to move. Then what happens is, instead of the diaphragm, what moves? Because movement is for your lungs to expand and lungs to deflate. Only when the lungs expand, pressure reduces inside, atmospheric pressure will push the air in. Okay? Only when the lungs deflate, the pressure inside increases, air gets pushed out. Okay, so there has to be some movement for you to survive. So then what the body does is scalenes. These are neck muscles which run to the top 2 ribs. So they start to then work in slightly lifting up this way. So you're sitting like there's just this top 2 ribs will have a slight movement. That is done by these muscles. That's why many people caught up in very stressful desk jobs, corporate jobs, they tend to get a lot of neck pain. And that's because the scalenes are working as breathing muscles, which they are not supposed to. Diaphragm is the breathing muscle, but diaphragm is locked up by the posture. So all this we have to bear in mind. Okay? So Very tight psoas can inhibit the diaphragm. So all these very tight hamstrings can tighten up the pelvic floor. So when people come to you and say, we just want breathing, what they want is, they just want to do this air movement thing. So you have to explain that breathing is movement. Movement, we are talking about abdominal cavity, ribcage cavity, pelvic cavity. And that means we have to work on things which are really holding these areas together. We need a few ribcage openers, we need a few abdominal lengtheners, we need a few psoas lengtheners, we need a few hamstring lengtheners. Then the diaphragm is able to move well. Okay, I think I covered it. The module 2, second week. So what are the divisions of brain? Huh? Yeah, frontal lobe, parietal lobe, temporal lobes, occipital lobes. Okay, so structures of brain important to yoga practitioners. So for us, most important thing is witness self, this witnessing capacity. That is a structure called anterior cingulate cortex. So only when that structure is strong, then only we can actually do witnessing. So we are all experiencing stuff, but doesn't mean we are aware of the experience. We keep on experiencing. We can be angry, that is the experience part, but being aware of the experience of anger is another thing. Okay? So people can be angry and shouting that, who says I'm angry? Like that kind of thing. So that is all in that experience. We are not able to witness. And we can't simply witness also. So if we call a novice and say, okay, watch and count 500 breaths, they can't. They don't have that faculty strong enough to witness 500 breaths on a trot. That needs to be developed over a period of time. So anterior cingulate cortex is a structure which gets stronger and thicker with regular practice of witnessing. Okay, so either the breath or you can, generally for us it's the breath. Just continuous observance will allow more blood, more glucose to flow to that part. So always remember, brain has a fixed volume of blood at any point of time. Now where this blood, what structures and what circuits the blood feeds depend on how we are using the brain. So if we are continuously thinking of anger and past stories and vengeance and bitterness and all that, that is the story circuits. Okay? So those circuits will keep on getting more blood, more glucose. Amygdala is one which develops very strong kind of emotions. You know, limbic system is your emotional system, which is really linked to stories. The anterior cingulate cortex is not part of it. So we want to get a good amount of blood flowing to anterior cingulate cortex, going to insula. Insula puts us in touch with empathy. So these are structures very important for us. Yeah, anterior cingulate cortex and insula. And then of course primary motor cortex and primary sensory cortex. Primary motor cortex is the one which moves the body parts. So we are always looking at more and more skillful ways of moving, and we are always trying to sense the movement with even more refined sensitivity. That is a sensory cortex. So all these are parts which is very important to the yoga practitioner. Now present moment self, story self. I kind of covered it already. So the present moment self is you when you're connecting to simple direct sensations. So you sit and feel the breeze, feel the floor, hear the sounds, feel the breath. That is present moment self. There is no story there, just simple sensations, and just staying with that. Then there is a story self where you are a girlfriend, a wife, or office person of a particular religion, particular race, and then you're in those circuits, in those stories, yourself is mainly along those ways. That is the story self. And most of us, almost completely, our life is run along the story circuits. So it's important that we also have the present moment self. Yeah. Now, meditation in Sanskrit and meaning. Meditation, the term is dhyanam. So, di is a word for buddhi. Okay, di plus ayana is dhyana. Okay, di is buddhi, ayana is movement. So, steady movement of buddhi, that is meditation. So even in the very term dhyana, the movement is there. Your attention, so if you're watching breath, the breath is moving, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Your di or buddhi should flow with it, discerning this inhale, this exhale, this inhale, exhale. It has to move with it. That is dhyana. It keeps moving with your object. So, simply don't say, what is meditation? Stillness. Don't say like that. Because stillness is a term not included in dhyana. Okay, it is very skillful movement of buddhi. Okay, continuously on a chosen object. Okay, I don't know whether. Okay, here you have to add a few things. Just right there. Neurologically explain pratyahara and dharana. Okay, so what you have to say is, neurologically, you have to talk about basal ganglia. Okay, that our system is a novelty and entertainment seeking organism. Okay, it really looks for novelty, and it looks for stimulation. That in another way is entertainment. In another way, it's pleasure itself. So that, the biological hormonal equivalent of that feeling of something novel, some high, is dopamine. So when you focus on something, you are focusing on a particular pratyaya. You can now follow my language, right? Pratyaya is a possibility of an experience. So when we say you focus on your breath, what we mean is breath is always happening. That's a funny thing which people, yoga teachers say, that breathe. Everybody is breathing all the time. But when we say watch your breath, breath is always there. It's a pratyaya. So you're watching it, making it into a vritti. Okay? So after 2 breaths, we might forget that we were supposed to watch the breath. Okay? So then, what can keep you with the breath is, so there are so many pratyayas. Breath is one pratyaya, but there are so many other pratyas. But around this, focusing on the breath pratyaya, neurologically there is something called working memory gate. Working memory is your system reminds you as to what you should focus on at this time. That is called working memory gate. That is needed in all types of work. When you say attention deficit, or when you say sometimes children, they can't stay with what they have to focus. They forget it. Okay, they again think about playing, or they'll think about some other thing. So working memory, that is very important. The system should keep on reminding, at this point of time, this is what we are supposed to do, this is what we are supposed to do. That is working memory gate. That should close around that object. Okay, working memory gate should close. When it closes, there is concentration. Okay, the moment it closes, there is pratyahara. You have the tortoise which is pulled inside. You're inside that now. So you're watching the breath. Working memory gate closes, then there is only that breath pratyaya inside that working memory gate. You understand? Outside the working memory gate, there is all kinds of pratyayas. But you stay with the breath, working memory gate closes, then there is only breath inside that. Now, this working memory gate will collapse very soon if there is not enough dopamine inside that. So there is that working memory gate, you are with it inside. But the breath is boring. Okay? Inhale, exhale, you are starting to feel bored. Bored means there's not enough dope there. There's not enough dopamine there. Then the system is not looking at enlightenment or anything, it's basically looking at entertainment itself. It will loosen up that working memory gate. Here comes a memory of an attractive person, or an attractive memory, attractive fantasy, that actually increases dopamine. So dopamine is a pleasure-seeking thing, is entertainment-seeking, stimuli-seeking. So we have to, if we have to stay with a particular object, there should be enough, somehow we have to create a novelty on it. If you think it's the same thing we are watching, that very definition by which we are watching, or even being with someone, if those are the terms by which we define, then that lock thing around it is going to break. Okay, because we think there's no novelty there. Okay, and there is no stimulation there. Then it's very tough to stay with that same object, whether it's in meditation or in other aspects of life. So we have to find a way by which that novelty is there. So that's where the breath has to be somehow given some value. That's where the Tantra are good. They are not just about direct sensation, but they give some value. Oh, that's inhale and exhale, they see it as some kind of dance, or somehow you have to create some value to that. Okay. Then the dopamine is at a certain level inside the working memory gate, then that concentration builds up. A sufficient dopamine is there, that working memory gate is so closed, then it becomes solidified like a meditation and all that. But generally, the working memory gate keeps on crashing. Okay, other stimuli is allowed to come in because there's not enough pleasure from the breath. It takes a long time before you start to derive the pleasure of the breath. Once you taste that, then the mind likes that pleasure. Hey, there's something beautiful. Then it locks in there. Then it can happen. Okay? So all this you have to bear in mind, because it gives good grounding to these terms such as pratyahara, dharana, dhyana. So people say, oh, why can't I focus on the breath? Why am I so restless? There is good ways by which you can explain. Okay? So module 2, third week, 4 Vedas, just read it fast. Okay, I mean not now, at home. Brahman, Atman, Satya, Maya, Jiva, Mithya. That I think all of you know, right? Kind of. We have spoken at large about space and sky. Okay, space outside the studio, space inside the studio. Space inside the studio is called studio space. Space outside is called SS2 space. But actually both are the same space. So if this space has consciousness, and this space inside the studio identifies itself as a 1,500 square foot space and consider itself as small and all that, then that's a jiva. Okay? Now, if this space, some teacher makes it open eyes and it sees itself as non-separate from the space outside. It understands that the same space, I am the same space which is accommodating these 15 people here. I am the very same space which is accommodating this entire galaxy with the sun and everything in it. I am that same space, then it is Atma. It connects to its truth. It's not identifying with the temporary boundaries around it. It is identifying with its essence. That space is non-divisive. It is the same space which is holding the sun and the stars and everything. So it's not just a small space. That is Atma. Okay? Based on this line of thinking, if you read the rest of that notes, I think you will get it. Yumi? Okay? Yeah. Four Vedas is Rig Veda, Rig, Yajur, Sama, Atharva. Four Vedas. I might also ask you the divisions, four divisions of yoga. So what are the four Vedas? Is Rig, Yajur, Sama, Atharva. If we ask what are the four divisions of Veda, then you have to write the mantra. Yeah. The last part is the Upanishads. Yeah? So, what is karma? Karma is action, but we start to say this, karma is movements. Karma is movements, 5 types of movements. Upward, downward, sideways, expand, contract. Okay? And this whole universe is a karma kshetra. This entire universe is movement in all these ways. It's contracting, it's expanding. It's moving sideways, it is upward, it's downward, it's movement. So, what is karma yoga? When you're aware of these movements, okay, when you practice awareness of these movements, and then you not only are you aware, but you are aware of it with the view of lending skillfulness to it, then that is yoga. Yoga is lending skillfulness to karma. Yoga karma su kaushalam. Karma is not yoga, because then everybody is doing yoga. Okay, karma, everybody is doing karma. But when you're aware of the movements of karma and you're trying to lend skillfulness to it, then it becomes yoga. So if you're doing the karma of sitting down, okay, you're sitting down. Then you decide that let me add some skill to it. Let me sit down in a proper way. Let me respect the curvatures of the spine. Let me put the head right on top of the spine. Let me aware of this whole body in the sitting position. You're making it skillful. You're sitting. Then you're putting it towards the context of yoga. So being aware of karma, you should do your karma. Then it is karma yoga. Okay, so the text says, Yogastha kuru karmani. Yogastha, meaning be firm on yoga. In this context, means awareness. Yogastha, be very established in yoga. Do kuru karmani, do your karmas. Sangam tektva dhananjaya, meaning you do your karmas, but let go of obsessive expectations and all that. You lend maximum skillfulness. And then the 4 rules of karma. Okay? Karmani eva adhikaraha te. You have the right for actions. You have complete sovereignty over actions. You can choose to do whatever you want to do. Okay? But you don't have the same right on the result of those actions. Okay? That we do not know. That comes from mystery. That comes from a place where we don't know. See, isn't that the reason, isn't that the logic behind this line, practice makes perfect? Okay? We just don't know. We just know that the universe responds through everything, through your body too. So if you are trying something again and again, that unseen witness will respond to you by making your body adapt and succeed in what you are attempting to do. Okay? So that comes to us. We can't force the result. We can only ask the universe by putting an effort. Each effort is a request to the universe. But when it will come and all those things, if we simply say in 24 hours, in 6 weeks, in 28 days, that is vikalpa. Because we are not the ones who's going to do that. Okay? So, karmani eva adhikaraha te ma phala katachana. You have no right to claim that you are the one giving the results. We can't claim much power over that. So those things you have to revise. Yeah? So then Adha Thanu Vidya in the context of teaching asanas. So when you teach an asana class, the students who come into class, let's say basic students, what we mean is students who have not yet learned how to bring their powers of attention onto the mat. That's a basic student. Okay? So students bring their skeleton and muscles into the mat, but they can't bring their attention into the same mat. Attention will still be with their office, with their home, with their other thoughts. Attention is still somewhere there. So then when we say, if we tell them very delicate kind of instructions, they won't be able to pick up. So Adha is, you just tell them what body part has to be taken where. That is simple. That brings them into the mat. Brings them meaning, brings their attention onto the mat. So you say, take the right foot back. Take the arms shoulder high. These are simple, direct instructions, which is the Adha instructions. So basically you're telling about a body part which has to be moved where. Very clear instructions. Take your arms upward towards the ceiling. That's an Adha instruction. Okay? So we start there, and then we find that students are starting to connect to these instructions well. Then after that, we introduce Thanu. Thanu means they have to be quite focused here. They are thin, meaning the office identities are not there, their future, their past, everything is gone. They are really here. Then you can give them refined instructions. So instead of just telling, step your right leg out and turn out the right foot to right, you will say, engage the right abductors and step the right leg to the right. Engage the right piriformis and externally rotate the right hip and engage your peroneus to put, like those kind of instructions. That is Thanu. Process. Where you become meditative, they immediately connect. Jnana Deepti, they are connecting to the inner depths of anatomy and all that. So that is very refined. They have to be totally present to connect to such instructions, to relate to such instructions and respond. That is Thanu. It is more about how. Adha is what, where. So that is generally shape and endpoint. Thanu is how and the process, refined process. That's where we say KCC, pelvis, cobra, pelvis, cat, ribs, all these things. Okay, hyoid bone this way, crown that way, all those kind of instructions. Once students are connecting to that too, then we slowly add in Vidya. Vidya is as they're doing, you're asking them, also contemplate on what is moving the body parts. Okay? So don't do the movement only for moving sake. Do to connect to that which is moving the movement. That kind of instructions. Vidya. So where they start to know themselves as more than a shape, more than a name, but something much deeper. So that is Adha Tanu Vidya in the context of teaching asanas. Now, 3 divisions of karma. Sanchita karma, prarabdha karma, kriyamana karma. You remember that? Sanchita karma is basically the bag of your samskaras. It is a repeat program. Okay, so this bag of samskaras, they want to repeat themselves. Okay, so generally we are all being pushed by this sanchita karma. That bag, we are basically repeating ourselves day after day after day after day after day. Prarabdha karma is on account of the actions we take based on sanchita karma, certain outcomes happen as an experience. Sanchita karma is tendencies of action. Okay? Then you take the action and then you get some kind of results. That is called prarabdha karma. Is it okay? So, I mean, a simple way of saying is like if you eat, you like sweets. Okay, sanchita karma, you always like sweets. You like tasty stuff. And then you keep eating that. Okay, then the prarabdha karma is your body weight increases. Okay, you find yourself a little bit big. But then you can, in this case, you can point out to yourself, it's because I was very careless about my diet, then that's why. But certain other things we can't point so clearly. Okay, so sanchita karma, prarabdha karma. Prarabdha karma is events happening in your life, which is based on what you have been doing before. But this is where we have to be careful. Generally, people talk about karma, they are talking about prarabdha karma. Something happens to you and they say that's karma. Okay, that is prarabdha karma. The texts themselves say that never talk that way. So what happens to us due to karma, the text says that is extremely subtle. Nobody knows it. Okay, we can't say, oh, because you did that, this happened to you. We can't point like that. Okay, we just know that, yes, for anything which is happening to us, there are causes and conditions. A majority of that is your own doing. But we just leave it at that. Okay? Go back to sanchita karmas. That's where we need to watch certain patterns, and certain patterns need to be changed. Then that is kriyamana karma. So most of us keep going sanchita karma. We repeat whatever we do. Certain outcomes, these outcomes also keep on happening. And we just move between these two. Now if we want a difference, then we have to change sanchita karma. We have to start undertaking a different set of thinking and actual actions. That is called kriyamana karma. Can we do differently? Can we think differently? Which will bring us to more wholesome states. So with that context, can we be more skillful in the way we move? Our tongue, our breath, our bodies, our thoughts, all of that, can we lend more skillfulness? Yoga karma sa kaushalam. When you lend that skillfulness into your actions, it becomes kriyamana karma. These are actions you are renewing, you're doing new right now. Okay? So that, if you continue over a period of time, that becomes the next sanchita karma. Okay? So it's not that sanchita karma is bad. If you find that sanchita karma is leading you to unwholesome outcomes, then we need to reflect on the current patterns, install new patterns, and after installation, repeat it for a while until it becomes spontaneous, and that whole process. Okay, see, these are the three divisions of yoga and this practice. Anatomy, abdominal muscles. You have rectus femoris, sorry, that is thigh muscle. Rectus abdominis. Rectus abdominis runs from the bottom of your sternum to your pubis. That is the famous six-pack muscle. Its main function is to round your lumbar spine, okay, which will bring your sternum towards the pubis or pubis towards the sternum or both. Okay, so that is the action. And then you have the obliques by the sides. Its main action is lateral movement, lateral flexion of the lumbar spine, which will bring your ribs to one side like this, and rotation. So this is also obliques. Okay, so lateral flexion and rotation of the ribs and spine is obliques. Then the third is transversus abdominis, which doesn't do anything to the spine or the ribs. It only pulls the abdominal, the rest of the abdomen towards the spine. Okay, it doesn't change the shape of the spine. It doesn't round it, it doesn't laterally tilt, it doesn't rotate it. It simply takes the abdomen towards the spine. Okay. So module 2, fourth week. 5 pranas. Do you remember? 5 pranas, I don't recall giving a lengthy discussion, so I can take it out. No, 5 pranas, I think we just leave it. If you remember, it is prana, apana, samana, udana, vyana. Have I taught? You remember? Okay. Anyway, check your notes. It's not part of the question anyway, but it's important that you have some idea of it. So if you can't recollect it, put it in the group. I will give a separate short lecture to you at one point of time. Okay? You have the notes? Okay. Then the 3 bodies. So this is Vedantic language already. The 3 bodies. Stula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, Karana Sharira. You can also write it in English simple direct terms: gross body, subtle body, causal body. Six stages of gross body exist: births, grows, matures, decays, dies. Okay? Now, 5 koshas. Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, Anandamaya. What is this kosha? Kosha means sheath or a covering. Okay? So you have to understand the context in which these teachings first came. This was a student asking about what is the essential self. So the teacher says the essential self is covered by these 5 layers. Okay? So this became a reason for the word transcend. Transcend and transcendence became a word used very commonly in yoga conversations. Partly is because of this teaching, where the yoga teacher says you have to go beyond the 5 koshas. Okay, starting with the physical body, Annamaya kosha, and so forth. But later, as you study and contemplate, you understand that nothing needs to be transcended. So the body doesn't have to be transcended to feel the self, to feel the spiritual self. What needs to be transcended is your ignorant assumption and affirmation that you are the body. It is that false knowledge that you have to transcend. It's not that the body has to be transcended or the body has to be hated or something. The body is not a block. If you keep thinking that you are just the shape, then that thinking is the block. Okay? Annamaya kosha. So if you keep on relating to yourself as a fat person or the thin person, the old person, the whatever those kind of things, then that thinking is a kosha. You're not connecting to yourself as a pure existence, wisdom, presence. You're not connecting to that. Because you keep on saying that you're this tight person, you're this bad person, you're like that kind of thing. Same with everything. Okay, Manomaya Kosha is not that mind is a problem. But you constantly define yourself by your likes and dislikes, by your opinions, and by your expectations, by your stories only, then that affirming of yourself as whatever person, based on the stories, that is the block. Vijnanamaya Kosha, same, your knowledge. But if you define yourself only based on that knowledge, you know some facts, and you keep on saying that's all that is there to it, I know, then that I know, that becomes the block to further knowledge. Okay? So that is the idea. Nothing needs to be transcended as such. It's your limited knowledge around it which has to be transcended. The 5 koshas. Wrist anatomy. So we have to remember this. Sutras look tough. Patanjali, the teacher, compassionate, humble. Okay? That's a code. When you decode, sutras, S stands for scaphoid. Look, L stands for lunate. Tough, T stands for trapezium. Okay, haven't I given you this? Sutras look tough, Patanjali the teacher, compassionate, humble. Okay, sorry, then I will put it in the group. But anyway, the wrist hand anatomy, if you look at the hand, have I taught you the hand at all? Oh, okay. So basically, essentially what you have to learn is, you have 2 bones at the forearms, okay? The bone in line with your thumb, you can touch right now, your arm. Bone in line with the thumb, okay? You can feel the bone, right? Going this way. That is called the radius. Radius, okay? The bone in line with the thumb. Radii, yeah. So this is equivalent to tibia. Okay, at the base, this is the thicker bone. Yeah? Then you can touch the bone in line with your little finger and just go a bit up towards the elbow. That is called the ulna. So radius and the ulna, U-L-N-A. So this is equivalent to fibula. Okay, so at the lower legs, tibia is thick, and here radius is thick.